solve x squared equals 36. All right, so x squared equals 36. Okay, so how do we solve that? What are we going to do? We gotta turn x squared into like regular x, right?
The square root.
That's right. That's right. Very good. Yeah, so it's going to be the square root because that's the opposite of a square. It cancels it, doesn't it? And that turns it into regular x. And the other side, what's the square root of 36?
6.
It is 6 indeed. Now, that's all true, but that's not all that's true. Now we need to think a little more carefully about square roots. In fact, let's go back to the original question. The original question was x squared equals 36, right? And we're saying x equals 6 is the answer. And that's true. That's true. That's part of the truth. Meaning, if you take that 6 and you plug it in there for x, 6 to the second power, 6 times 6 indeed is 36, isn't it? It works. And by the way, that's what we're doing whenever we solve an equation. We're finding the value of x that makes it true. And if x is 6, it works, doesn't it? Everybody see that? If I plug in a 6 there, 6 to the second power indeed is 36, isn't it? But 6 is not the only value that makes it true. What else? Think about negative 6. What is negative 6 times negative 6? What does that equal? Two negatives make a?
Positive 36.
Yeah, that is also 36. So in other words, we could have regular 6 times itself, and that'll be 36. Or we could have negative 6 times itself. That'll also be 36. Notice that both of those actually work, don't they? So the answers are actually 6 or negative 6. In fact, the way we do it is we just put a comma. And we're saying both of those work. Both of those are answers. And that's how we put an answer. 6 comma negative 6. You can put the negative first or second. The order doesn't matter. But you do need to have both of them and not just say 6. Does everybody see why? Because both actually work, don't they? Either one, 6, plain 6 to the second power is 36, but also negative 6 to the second power, which is negative 6 times negative 6, is 36. They both work. They're both answers, aren't they? Does everybody see that? And so, in order to help us remember to get both answers, what we tend to do in math is we put a plus or minus like that, and that helps us remember that one of the answers is positive 6 and the other is negative 6. So here's how I'm going to write it. When you put a root on both sides, which we just did, right? We did right here. I did a root on both sides. Put plus or minus on the number side. See how I put plus minus? And we see why, don't we? Because there's actually 2 answers. Both answers can make the original equation true. Regular 6 to the second power, 6 times 6 is 36, or negative 6 to the second power, negative 6 times negative 6, 2 negatives make a positive 36 also. Either one works. So whenever we have a square root on both sides, whenever we put, I should say, when we put a square root on both sides, when we square root both sides, we have to put plus or minus on the number side. You got to remember to put that plus or minus, which is shorthand notation for telling us there's actually 2 versions of the answer plus 6, and minus 6. And so because that's really hard for students to remember over the years, I've noticed. And so I made up a dorky saying. That's my job, to help you remember this math stuff. So here's my saying. When you put my root is a roof on the house. It's a very dorky saying. I may apologize for it as we begin. If you're going to put a new roof on your house, what do you got to do? You have to go up and down. That's my plus and minus. Up is positive, down is negative. Plus, minus the ladder. Sorry, it's lame, I know. But hopefully that'll help you remember. When you put a root on both sides, when you put a roof on your house, you're going to have to go up and down the ladder. There's no way you're going to put a roof on your house without going up and down. So when you put a root on both sides, you got to remember, plus or minus, you got to get the ladder out. You got to go up and down the ladder. All right, that's pretty lame, but I've said it over the years and more students have remembered. So there we go. So whenever you put a roof on the house, whenever you put a root, you got to go plus or minus, because we saw the truth. There really are two answers. And so there we go. Just put them both in with a comma.